What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the All Smith Project. Today's guest is a former NFL player. He played linebacker for the University of Tennessee and later had a stint in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. He's a husband, a leader, and a fitness enthusiast, and the founder of the Edge Foundation. He's recently connected with the SLB, the agency, which is the official mental health agency for athletes, helping young bucks navigate the NIL. None other than Curt Maggitt. Welcome to the show, man.
What's happening?
The myth, the legend.
There we go.
And dude, it's super cool to connect with you finally. Like, we've been chatting back and forth for quite some time. Yeah. When I first met you, I knew nothing about you, but I could feel your energy. Like, you positively impact the people around you. You ask phenomenal questions. You share great stories. You're a very special human being, and that's the first reason why I really wanted to connect with you and unpack your story for some of our listeners. So thank you first and foremost for being just a good human being, man.
Yeah, appreciate that. And same to you, Bryce. I remember that the conversation, just sitting there chatting, and I think your presence is, you take up space, but then just sitting there talking with you, it was a very, very good connection, first time meeting you. So appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. Looking back at your story, when you think about just your football experience and what it means to you, is there a word that maybe comes to mind? Like, you're a little bit removed from your football experience now. You're moving on to embarking on other chapters and newer things, but it's always going to be a part of you.
Yeah.
Is there a word that comes to mind when you reminisce or reflect on your football career?
Amazing. That's the word. But if I had to make a phrase, it would be, you can't fake it. And
yeah.
I'll dive into,
and that's what bleeds through with you is like, even your smile, you can't fake it.
Yeah, you can't. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Well, looking back at your journey, how did you ultimately find a connection with football? Like, obviously, at some point, you developed a little bit of size. Yeah. You became familiar with your athletic potential. But what was your childhood like, and how did you get introduced to sport and later football?
I was introduced to football from my bigger brother. I'm one of three in the household. My mom passed away when I was 2. My dad raised us, and having a brother 3 years older, I'm sure you know, from being 6 years old to 9 years old, 9 years old to 12 years old, that gap is fairly significant as we're getting older. So growing up, I always chased after him, and he started out playing football. I wanted to be just like him, and I was really pulled into it from one. I happened to be good at it, but I think mainly it was an outlet for me. I had I had anger management issues, and football was a positive channel to release that energy. And then second, it gave me a purpose when I look at the longevity of it, or as I continue to grow and develop in it. So that's how I was introduced to it.
That's really cool. Did you play any other sports as a kid, or what was it like in the household? Yeah. First and foremost, I'm sorry for the loss of your mom at such a young age. But what was it like in your household? You briefly mentioned your older brother, that your dad raised you. What was the neighborhood environment like? What were the friendships like, and what were those first introductions to competitiveness and just trying to hold your own?
All right. Yeah. So from a neighborhood standpoint, it was cool. It was everybody outside. You got the candy lady. You got the ice cream truck gonna come around. You run outside. Hot summer day in South Florida. You might be eating a little dilly or a fresh cut piece of watermelon. Go play some sports. Go play basketball at the court or playing football. Flag tag. We call it tag in the street, tackle in the grass. Go drink on the water hose. So those are the things that come back to mind. And I think it's crazy as we grew and as we evolved. Decisions are made, divisions are made within a small community where we all just want to enjoy life, and I think distractions come, but I would say from an environment standpoint, that's what comes That's what came to mind.
That's cool, man. The very first sports drink was the water hose, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And dude, nothing tastes better than when you're a little parched, quite sweaty, the humidity of South Florida, and then just getting that hose. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go get back at it again.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need.
That's awesome, man. Were the majority of the neighborhood kids your age, or were they a little bit older? Like, what was that discrepancy like? And when did you find yourself personally being like, man, that guy just busted my ass. Like, I want to get him back. Like, I'm starting to get a little competitive. What was that journey like?
Yeah. So the guys I ran with were usually 2 to 3 years older than me. So I was always playing catch up in a sense. I was always, decently tall for my age, but I was thin, skin and bones. Yeah, I was thin. I was kind of skinny guy, but had heart of a lion. So anything that they did, I knew I could do it, and I wanted to compete and show them. And I think is one memory come to mind was playing. It was a church around the corner, and we used to play tackle football, and because it's all grass on the back side of the church, and I remember I went low on a guy, and he did like a whole flip. And at that moment, everybody like, I'm probably 10, 11 years old. Everybody like, dang, Curt, blah, blah. And these are all the older guys. And it's just a good feeling, just like that little spark of confidence and, and the love and the support is just kind of like, oh yeah, it's like, I'm a little bit different, So I grew up competing with people older than me, and even starting out with my brother, if he did it, I tell my dad, I can do it. I can do it better. If he tries something, I want to try it too. So when it came to competing with people my age or even a year younger, a year older, I've been there. I've already, stood that test.
Move fast and break shit. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer. The zipper pocket is an absolute game changer. I go from training at the gym directly to meetings, running errands, or prepping for podcasts. The LSKD tribe has become true family, and we are excited to continue to develop our community. Shop now at lskd.com and use code ALLSMITH. We chase the vibe here at AllSmith. Let's all become 1% better every day. I love hearing that, man. It's cool when you receive the respect of the older guys.
Absolutely.
Getting respect from like fans and stuff is obviously great, which you experienced later on in your journey. But when you get it from the boys and they're a little bit older than you, it sits a little bit different, man. And it's cool to understand that was part of like the developmental stages of your mindset and better understanding, where you come from and why it's so important that you treat people appropriately and you're incredibly respectful. You have this optimal dosage between asking and listening, which is a very special characteristic. As you evolved in the younger days, what happened when you got to high school? Were you a dual sport athlete? Did you focus just on football? What did high school look like for you?
Well, I started out, football was my primary focus. When I was 9 years old, it was my first year playing tackle. I made the all-star team. And then from there, I was, all right, Curt a pretty good football player for his age. Get to middle school, continue along that route. We had Pop Warner, FedEx football leagues down there in South Florida. And we were very competitive. We had real good talent, and we didn't have it how it is now with the recruiting and all that kind of stuff. But from a high school standpoint, my brother was going into his senior year in high school at Dwyer. I said, I'm going too. That was a no-brainer. So my eighth grade summer, I'm already training with the varsity guys. So freshman year, I make varsity. I played junior varsity basketball, and I did track as well. I did triple jump and track. But my sole focus, and I knew I was gonna be a good football player. It's like I got the recipe, I got the foundation already laid. Jack Daniels and all my coaches at Dwyer in Palm Beach, they had a very comprehensive training program, 7-on-7 in the off season. So I was always kind of looking to develop. I would say after my sophomore year, I shut everything else out, all football. But in essence, I've been a football player. Like basketball, I'm a foul you, might miss a layup. That was me.
You're still an energy guy and a hustle guy that's going to bring some great contribution to the team
Yep.
on the basketball court too. And dude, it's cool to hear like how all of this happened and evolved. Did you ever feel the pressure? Like at that age, there's not a ton of like phone cameras at that time. Social media was kind of just starting to evolve just a touch. But like, did you feel the pressure just because you were good at a young age? You were obviously chasing your brother. Was there any sort of expectation that then kind of lived rent free in between your ears that kind of was a little troublesome for you in any moment?
Not really. Now that I think back on it, I was prepared. I was trained. And I think as a mentor or a big brother, you I had the advantage because I had him. He went out and learned, and he was essentially paved the way. He was a trailblazer. So it was written that, I would evolve and continue to grow. And so I didn't feel any pressures. And to be honest, the football team we had, I was probably the fifth or sixth best guy on the team. I only played one position. Like you got some guys that's playing D1 or going pro that say, hey, when I was in high school, I played safety, wide receiver, quarterback, linebacker. For me, I was just a defensive end. And, I had caught a couple balls at tight end, but no, we had a really, really good team, really good training program. And yeah, I think my brother instilled a lot of confidence in me early. And I knew I've always felt ready.
What I like about that, Curt, is that you recognize the value of having somebody before you that paves the way. That's not always easy because there's not always light at the end of the tunnel. There's not always a trail, like you mentioned, him being a trailblazer and laying a path or a red carpet for you to then pursue. Not that it was easy and not the concept of, oh, must be nice. It's just you had a path forward.
Absolutely.
And what's great, which we'll unpack a little bit later, is now you recognize that as an adult, gently removed from your professional career, and you're seeing the uncertainty, fear, and doubt that creeps into some of these younger athletes now in a social media culture with the onset of the nil. Is it about football? Is it about trying to have a bigger following? Is it about business? Who to trust? How do we have financial management? How do we perform? How do we represent ourselves? I mean, the questions can be endless for the up and coming, really good athlete in a wide array of sports, but specifically basketball and football, especially in the college realm.
Absolutely.
And it's cool to know that like you have that tool in your toolbox. You're like, you know what? I'm going to pave the way for some of these young bucks, and I'm going to play the role of big brother. And I'm really proud of you for doing that. What was your recruiting process like? Were you always set on like, man, I'm going SEC, or did you kind of dance around a little bit, entertain different offers?
Yeah, that was cool and pretty crazy. My freshman year, I played varsity. My brother was the defensive end. He was the number 8, so a lot of the things, and I wanted to be just like him in essence, right? So my freshman year, I didn't play a lot. We blowing somebody out. Curt, get in. I'm running out there like a deer with his, like a baby deer, just like clumsy as it. So, but by my sophomore year, before we get to the season, we're training, and I received my first offer, and it's the University of Wisconsin. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, we going to college. Like, I ain't played football yet, but we going to college. So from that moment on, I end up having a pretty good high school career. Finished number 3 outside linebacker in the country from by the time I was graduating. And so at that point, I was able to line up, I don't know how many offers, I never counted. But I took visits to Wisconsin because, one, they were my first offer and first acknowledge me. Florida, Florida State, no, Wisconsin, Florida, Tennessee, LSU, and Alabama. Those were my 5 official visits. That's the ones that they take care of everything and, show you the landscape. But I'll say I didn't have a lock-in on a team or a school. I knew I wanted to play in the SEC. If Wisconsin was in the Southeast, I probably would have gone there. I loved their culture. I loved the guys that they had on the team. Just Wisconsin was too far and too cold. But yeah, so it came down to Florida and Tennessee. At the time, I had about 5 teammates at the University of Florida. It's 3.5 hours up the road, and it was interesting because it's like, hey, I can take this path where how much more do I expand my network? It's relative, because or I can go and try something different and be the guy from South Florida that went up to Rocky Top, and meet new people, experience the mountains and just a whole different environment, whole different world than I'm used to. And I don't look back with any regrets. I'm glad I went up to Tennessee, as we can see.
That orange got you, man. I'm sure those Gators were a little disappointed when you made that decision.
Yeah, they were. Big time.
How close were you to the time of Urban Meyer being there and Tim Tebow? They just released that documentary a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a similar time frame, or were you before or after them?
I was So I was recruited by Coach Meyer. I received my offer from him, and going into what would have been my first year, I believe Will Muschamp took over as head coach, and the offer maintained. But as I mentioned, having 5 teammates at UF, between my junior year and senior year, we were up and down the road. We visit there all the time. I was able to go to Tim Tebow's his senior night, his last game against Florida State, and talk about an electric environment. But I was ultra familiar with it. It was my high school coaches from there. I had probably 3 coaches that graduated from there. So Tennessee was made for me.
Totally. I think it's really cool that your mindset thought about the network, thought about the land of comfortable complacency, where it's like, okay, I could go there, but it's familiar and I kind of know that already. And you were like, you know what? I want to explore for lack of a better analogy, my palate. I want to try something different. I want to see what else is out there and the impact that I can potentially make. Before we jump into your conversation around Tennessee and what that experience was like, the whole Florida Gator regime at that time, man, that is wild to think about. I mean, maybe some of us knew that was going on, some of us didn't, but it's like the Aaron Hernandez saga, the Tim Tebow stuff. I mean, such incredible athletes. I think later on we had Percy Harvin, and I'm probably missing some of the bigger names that are highlighted on that documentary. But I've since heard a lot of the guys that were in that locker room, like, man, like the documentary was cool, but there was so much more going on behind the scenes that was not revealed. And sometimes I think from the finish line looking backwards, we romanticize because of the outcome or the success that team experienced. But people forget that, like, in the in-between, there's a toxic culture, there's navigating problems, there's emotional dysregulation. Now we know there was drugs and potentially murders and things going on behind the scenes that none of us knew was going on at that time. It's wild to me to think about all of that going on. The landscape of college football in the SEC, there's not a word for it. Electric, maybe? Wild? Crazy? What are your thoughts thinking about kind of unpacking or just like a brief synopsis on some of this stuff? The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Won't speak to any details or anything of that nature, right? Because I'm not ultra familiar with, but I agree. I think we can all acknowledge, like, it was crazy, especially when they pull the curtains back. It's like, yo, how are y'all winning games and and kick and tail and maintaining eligibility and still having extracurricular time for all these crazy things. But I'll go back to the phrase I said, is you can't fake it. It's one thing to be just an extraordinary athlete, but I believe who you are, the traits that you embody, they will come to life. They will come to light, whether that's you go on and have a 10-year NFL career or whatever, a 15-year NFL career, you become in the Hall of Fame. But at some point, the success isn't always tied directly to the actions or, let's say, the inputs of said individual, right? Maybe so that gets back to you can't fake it. Success and excellence isn't always 100% aligned. And I lean more to the excellence side because I know that at the end of the day, the success will follow rather than chasing an outcome. But so that's what I would say is, you can't fake it.
Yeah, that's very well said, Curt. And I love this statement. It's very cliche, but it's be married to the process and divorced from the outcome.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult on the human mind to think, man, I'm putting all these inputs in. I should get said outputs, but the human experience doesn't work that way. High-level athletics for damn sure doesn't work that way. There's injuries, there's emotions, there's so many different variables. And then there is probably a little element of luck. There's the ball bouncing a certain way at a certain time in a certain place. And I think that you described that very well. When we look at now your experience, you're at the University of Tennessee, orange everywhere. You think about just the electrifying magnitude of the energy when you enter that stadium. What was it like upon arrival, and how was your experience there, man?
My experience there was incredible. One incredible roller coaster that was, I would say, heaven sent. My first time in Neyland Stadium, we had a capacity of 102, 455, so 100,000 people in one location. My first experience was the first time I ran out for the game. So when I came up for my visit, it was in January or right before signing day. So I wasn't really familiar with the stadium. I kind of saw it a little bit, but electric. And it goes back to it all came to fruition. When I was in high school, it's like, I got a chance to be the guy from South Florida going to Tennessee, blah, blah, blah. So come signing day, Tennessee was up and all because, he didn't go to Florida. He went to Tennessee. I come in, start as a freshman, I'm number 56, skinny guy with dreads, and the fans, they welcome me, so to be a part of an environment as electric, and I would say one of the, if not the best college football environment in the nation, as a freshman, so those memories, those moments in that initial kickoff, oh man, is indescribable. But I would say, beyond that, so freshman year goes extremely well. Freshman, all SEC, all the good things. Then it's a roller coaster. Injuries, heal back up, play well, injuries. So there was a flux of injuries throughout my career. But the one thing I maintained was, and I think it starts with it, is the people and also the brand, so it's the small inputs, man, that leads to excellence or quote unquote levels of success, but those connections, man, and being intentional behind them. And that's been my NIL. That's been my name, image, and likeness, is the connections and the what the volunteer, brand stands for. So.
Yeah. And you definitely live it. Like, you definitely don't fake it. And there's so many things I want to unpack with that. But the very first thing that comes to mind, what was the gap from high school to college like for you? Yeah. You obviously played up. You were performing at a very high level and exceeding expectations at a very young age. But then there comes this next layer, this next level, an intangible of, you're not playing with kids anymore. You're playing with grown men. They've been there for a while. They know the environment. There's also the heaviness of just a college football lifestyle. Wake up early, get a lift. You've got class. You've got meetings. You've got two versions of meetings. You got meetings with the entire team. You got specialty meetings with your position coach. You've got film. You've got rehab and prehab, getting taped up, worked on. I mean, there's so many different things associated with being a Division I football player, and most people romanticize Saturdays. But there's a lot of preparation that goes in before you make it to Saturday. So what was that gap like for you?
I would say the gap was fairly shortened, one, because of the organization that I came from, Dwyer, we were well prepared, right? We did things a certain kind of way, and accountability was widespread, considering me being the number 3 outside backer, but also like the 5th best person on my team, kind of shows you the talent that we had. And the accountability was held across the line. It's not, we all do this on the same way. If the rule is set, the rule is set across the board. So going into college with that understanding of one, business, and, we'll also say intent, so how we do things and why we do things a certain way. And then having my big brother, I'm understanding and seeing how he's navigating it. What struggles did he have? And so I would say,
where did he play? Did he play Division I football too?
Yeah, he played at Iowa State. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So the transition was pretty solid. I would say from a physical standpoint, it was just getting stronger because, man, South Florida, we fast. Is not much different, but it was just getting in the weight room, following the regiment and going out playing ball. But
now that you're in the fitness space and kind of looking back,
yeah,
what was that like when you first got into the weight room? A lot of bench press, power cleans, a lot of bent over rows, deadlifts. Like, what were some of the main like meat and potatoes of your training that helped you put on some muscle mass to hang, not just in the SEC, but for the duration of an entire season?
And I'll just be frank. I think it's overall crappy. And I say that because you have about 110 guys with 3 strength coaches, and it's a blanket all, hey, everybody follow this format. Let's say I get in May. So we have, June, July, August. So we have a little over 3 months to prep for the first game. And in that time frame, you got guys gaining 25 to 30 pounds because a lot of times the strength and conditioning staff are chasing a number. That leads to, on paper, it looks great. You recruited this guy that has this level of talent, but there's a disconnect because you can't just quantify. You can't always quantify, one's value. Sometimes it's qualitative. Qualitative versus quantitative. So some of those values are qualitative. You saw it on film, he can play that way. So now you're trying to, reinvent the wheel in a sense, or trying to move the needle too fast. And I would say from my standpoint, I suffered a lot of injuries throughout my career, and not to say that the strength program was a part of it, was the root of it, but I would say as I've learned beyond the game, there should be a different method and philosophy when it comes to that. That's
peptides. There's been a lot of buzz about peptides and what they can do for the body, skin, muscles, and health. What exactly are they? And do they live up to the hype? Your body makes peptides. They are strings of amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. Peptide therapy involves using prescription-based peptides to help treat and manage a variety of health conditions to maximize performance. Peptides consist of 2 to 50 amino acids and are made naturally in the body to act as important signaling molecules for many physiological and cellular functions. There are over 7,000 known functions of peptides in the body, and adequate levels in the body are imperative for performing at optimal levels. Discover a transformative journey to optimal well-being with Live Peptides. Live Peptides offer a natural and effective approach to health support. Embrace the difference. Choose Live for a path to vitality that prioritizes quality, innovation, and your unique wellness goals. My personal favorite is BPC 157 with thymosin beta for optimizing gut health, tissue regeneration, and healing. Head over to livenatural.com and use code ALLSMITH for 20% off peptides. That's LIVVNATURAL.com with discount code ALLSMITH for 20% off peptides. Now, you definitely have an intuition there, and you've learned. You've been around a lot of high-level fitness people at this point. Also, you've studied your body. You've observed the metrics of teammates and whatnot, and I love to say this because it is very true. Everything that is measured doesn't always count, and everything that counts isn't always measured. Just because you see something on film, humans are malleable creatures. They're not the same person that you saw 6 months ago on film if you put 25 pounds on them. And if you forcibly put 25 pounds on them because numerically it looks good in comparison to guys that have made the NFL, they might be a step slow. They might experience a little bit of joint pain. Cognitively, they might not be feeling as light on their feet to perform at the level that they're used to from the last 18 years of their life before they got to college. So there's a lot of things to explore there. Yeah. And I think it's a really good observation that, like, it's difficult to create a strength program for hundreds of guys. Yeah, but it's simultaneously difficult to execute that when you're trying to, maybe conform isn't the right word, but you're trying to be a part of the team. You don't want to be the guy off in the corner and be like, nah, that doesn't work for me. Yeah. Like, you're going to get ostracized out of that locker room and you're not going to be one of the guys.
Yeah, agree 100%.
So, I mean, it's a very difficult situation, but at the end of the day, I think both parties, both the athletes and the coaches, are simply trying to do their best. And you've since learned and evolved from that. What was your first experience with pain management within your football career? You mentioned a little bit of the injuries. Yeah. And what was that like, navigating that at a young age where you're like, man, I just want to be back out there in front of 100,000 doing the thing?
Yeah. So one, and this kind of hits on, because I was going to elaborate further on the strength and conditioning programs and, how I guess I would say through my journey as a college athlete. First thing was, I'm the type, let's get the job done and we'll figure it out later, so I pushed through a lot of things, and which I as I learned and as I grew, I learned, so I would say after my sophomore season, I took a red shirt. That was the year I had a bunionectomy, had to put a screw in my big toe. I tore the ligament that holds this toe straight. So I was playing on a foot that was, the toe was under my pointy toe, and I tore my ACL that season. So going into 2 surgeries within, let's call it 3 weeks, I was like, all right, it's time to take a season. Let's try to get healthy. So one, slowing down in education was a big part of my pain management. So to understand what's referred pain, what's chronic pain, where is this pain coming from? Is it, and so now I'm learning more. So we talk about the rehab, prehab, and we have with the few strength coaches that we have, I go and get the assistant. I say, hey, I'll meet with you during these times, because they usually have a little more time than the head guy. And we develop plans. I go and work out with him, so now I'm kind of tailoring the way I'm moving and what I'm doing that's specific to my body. And those types of things I've been able to carry over beyond sports. And I would even say things like yoga, Pilates, really being engaged with the smaller muscles, because when we first get to the university, the numbers that are being measured are the squat, the bench press, the broad jump, the meat and potatoes of training. But to have a strong core, to not just be flexible but mobile, and those types of things. So education.
No, I like the way you described that a lot. The education is huge, but it takes time to develop that. Exactly. It's hard in the beginning when you're getting like the validation for the macro, right? But the micro is huge. And I've had a few different NFL guys on here, and something that seems to come up a lot is the best ability is availability. Oh, yeah. And so early on, like, you're proving yourself to get those numbers, and you're trying to get, the 40 time, the broad jump, the bench press reps, the squat, the power clean, the things that look good to the eye, to the coaches, that get people all excited and jazzed up. But after that, it's, hey, can you make the tackle? Can you deflect the pass? Are you available to do the things that we recruited you to do? Or all these things are beautiful metrics that make for a great story around the term potential, but potential doesn't always equal reality. Right. And I think you learned that over the course of time, which is, my goal is to be on the field, and then the next goal is to get a contract extension. Right? Like, it's not just about these romanticized metrics that then allow you to have potential, because so many guys have potential that doesn't get the juice squeezed out of the orange. And I think I'm curious your thoughts around your relationship with famous motivational speaker Inky Johnson.
Yeah.
But something that comes to mind here that I want to explore is your mindset as you're navigating injuries, because he says something that very much aligns with me, which is there's a difference between quoting scripture and actually living it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you mentally, overcoming these injuries and realizing that you needed to tailor a path for yourself in order to get back to doing what you love and ultimately make it to the next level?
It was crazy, man, to be honest. So I finished my career with 7 surgeries, and a bunionectomy, acetabulum rim fracture in my hip. So that doesn't count as one of the surgeries. So 8 significant surgeries: 3 shoulders, 3 knees, and then the big toe. And it took a lot of mental foraging, in the sense of gratitude being number one. Gratitude, and then my resilience and my capacity for resilience just continued to grow. My education and my inquisitiveness, my curiosity of why is this happening? Looking at my doc and square in the eyes after, 6 months ago, I was talking to Rosenhaus, considering, having them as an agent in the coming season, to 6 months later talking to a doctor about potentially needing a hip replacement, right? So instead of breaking down, I have my notepad in front of me, and I'm okay. So what do you need from me? What are my actions? Remove the emotion, right? And so I bring up all those different things because when we look at the step by step, a lot of times the best way to get back to the top of the mountain is to start from the bottom and find a new path, and to forge the new path that hadn't been defined yet. And that's happened a few times. And as I mentioned, my sophomore year, after the ACL and the bunionectomy, I say, hey, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to come back very healthy and in shape, and I'm going to be the best Curt that I've ever met. And I did. I came back 6'4", about 242 pounds. I think I was like 5 to 6% body fat, feeling great, moving amazing. And I finished the season with over 11 sacks. So
Wow.
The inputs coming off of, everything that was behind allowed for me to build a foundation that was aligned to where I was trying to go. So
That's great, man. It's cool to hear too. Some of the best advice that I'd ever been given was find what works and do more of it.
Yeah.
Right. And it sounds so simple, but it's difficult to find exactly what works when you think these other things were working until they stopped working. And it becomes the concept of how you got here is not how you get there.
Yeah. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult pill to swallow at the onset when you're full of ego and piss and vinegar. And you're like, why would I change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So after that season of 11 sacks, what became your mindset? Like, did the NFL start to pop into your headspace? And you're like, okay, I need to start preparing for this next chapter.
Yeah. And opportunities started coming in. My advisor and I had a conversation. Is like, hey, this is how this look, Curt. Teams know your potential and that what you've displayed as well. But at that moment, I think I already had 4 surgeries, 4 or 5 surgeries. And so it's like, if we can stack 2 seasons if I got 7 to 8 sacks, a season after 11, I'm showing 1, availability, 2, productivity, and also that, teams can have more confidence in what they get in the product. And that'll pull my draft stock up significantly. So the game plan was like, hey, let's do it again. Let's stay healthy and let's get after it. So talk about a level of focus and, the journey and everything just coming to realize, because you go first round, you're talking 15, 20 plus million in signing bonus. You know what I mean? So that's life changing. That's generationally changing, so it was a good time.
That's cool. As you were coming back from injury, did you find yourself subtly navigating a little voice in your head that maybe was a gentle tap on the shoulder of fear of like, hey man, like we don't need to have the same 11 sacks or productivity of last year, but we We still gotta get shit done. We still gotta figure this out, but not at the risk of putting myself in a possible consequential position that could then lead to a 6th or 7th or 8th surgery in that moment.
Yeah. I say, nah, I was all gas.
All gas, no brakes for Curt
all
Maggitt.
gas. The thing is, and when we talk about gratitude, to have a chance to run, to play the game, that's why when people ask me about football and, I'm able to continue life beyond and not have my identity so wrapped in it, because every opportunity I had, I gave everything I had, so if Curt was on the field, you're going to get the best of Curt that day, so that was, and that's that same, mantra, philosophy. I've been able to carry that into other areas now, but yeah, man, I was excited, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna press it.
Like that. I think that's the difference right there, man, is the best of the best have the ability to put those blinders on and have supreme focus and not allow those distractions or those fears or those insecurities or even the failures to penetrate into the vision, the headspace, or the ethos. And then as a byproduct, the barriers get out of the way. Those obstacles are a little bit gone. There's no speed bumps, and it's just you and that next tackle or making that next play. What was the draft journey like? What was your NFL combine like, and how did you ultimately make it to the NFL? Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinneon Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinneon is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinneon's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinneon.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
So it was interesting. So I'll take you back to when we, were having those conversations with the doctor about the acetabular rim fracture. I come out of the junior season having these conversations with Rosenhaus and his team and all these different potential agents. And now we're going into my senior season, feeling good, feeling great. Let's go. Like, it just came off, momentum's high. Playing in our third game against Oklahoma. So we host Baker Mayfield and their team in Neyland. Sold out, orange and white. It's crazy environment. First quarter, I have 3 TFLs. I'm in the backfield every play. It's the loudest, the most electric game I've ever been in or been a part of. Like, you could feel when the crowd's making noise, you can feel the pulse, like, literally on your skin. So this game in the second quarter, the start of the second quarter, it's called punt safe. So it's about 4th and 4 to 6-ish. They could potentially fake it, so defense stays out. I get in the linebacker position. I take 2 steps forward, and I fall down. I feel a sharp pain from my foot coming all the way up to my hip, and it's just weird because I never felt that before. So I get to the sideline, trying to to figure out, how do I get back in the game? We're gonna figure out the rest later. Like, just give me a couple pills and medicine or something. Let's get this over with so I can get back out there. Docs give me the limit of what they're legally allowed to give me, and nothing. So I was able to cycle on a bicycle, but I couldn't lift my leg up. I'm like, something's not right. That's when I learned that I had the acetabulum rim fracture. So that means that the hip dislocated completely. And as it was dislocating, it fractured the rim of the hip socket. It relocated on its own. So I go from that and go and see a hip specialist in Nashville. And I'm on crutches 4 months, non-weight bearing. So we go from September all the way up to October, November, December, January. I'm not afraid to use my fingers. So we go all the way up to January to, no, don't put any weight on your foot, and then we will see. We'll see how you look. We'll see how you feel. But football isn't really on the table right now. It's like, let's make sure you take care of yourself so you don't need a hip replacement. So going into the NFL Combine, now I'm at surgery number 5. I've already had 5 surgeries. Now this is the hip injury, but no surgery on it. So teams are aware. They're like, hey, a good player. We'll interview him. I go up to the Combine. I'm not able to do anything competitive. And the Indianapolis Colts, they had a tremendous staff, and they acknowledged my situation, and it was awesome. They welcomed me, as an undrafted free agent. I had a couple other opportunities, but I think Indianapolis was the best fit from a defensive lineman standpoint, and it was cool. I would say going into the summer, the training camp, the OTAs, mini camp, they took it slow, ramped it up as we got going, and during the preseason, I was rated the highest outside linebacker, and just being able to take it slow and get back to where I know I could be. It was a journey. And you talk about that mental and that voice in your head and dark places, and it's just kind of it's a lot. It's all over the place. But how do you come out on it in the right way?
When we have you on again, I definitely want to unpack that a little bit more and better understand the psychology, because like you said, like it's easy looking back to see why it had to be that way, and what you learned in the process, and the prescriptions and everything in between. When you're in it, man, you start questioning everything.
Yeah.
And it brings up a word for me that I want to touch on before we wrap up our conversation today. Is it's identity. It's like with that hip injury, you're navigating your identity. I'm a football player. I'm one of the best football players in the world.
Yeah.
And then also what I see a lot of people going through, and I went through this personally, which is this identity of life after professional sports. Who am I? How do I fit in the world? How do I orient myself? What is my value? And I think there's a lot of people that go through that. And I view it as like you're the caterpillar, which is maybe the athlete. But then you got to go through that lonely phase of being in the cocoon before you can blossom into becoming the butterfly. You're incredibly misunderstood. Nobody really gets it unless you've done it yourself, but your journey is individualistic to you. What does that word identity mean to you in relation to your transition from football into where you're at now? It's heavy, right?
You hit it on the head. Yeah. And I look at it this way. The transition never ends. And if you lived the way you say you lived and you put in the work that you say you put in, it'll significantly be a part of you, right? And so even though I've not been on a football field or a football practice in a while, in a long time, but it's still a strong part of me. But I don't let the actions of a football player guide my actions today, guide my thoughts, right? And that's why it's so important for those small inputs. And I'm saying all these things to say my identity has changed. I've been able to reinvent myself. I've been able to navigate different spaces, and because if you don't, it's even more scary. And that's what I've realized, and that's why when you look at opportunities like sports, life, business, the life part is huge,
Yeah.
And like you said, man, we got a lot to unpack there, because that's my biggest passion is it's the reason I want to create the Edge Foundation. It's the reason why I'd rather have these conversations, and pour into the youth. That's the reason why I have mentees that I try to help guide and give them, pointers and tips, but everybody's journey is different. It's a lot to unpack there, man.
For sure, man. Well, I appreciate your time and energy so we can better understand the path of being an all-star youth athlete in the pursuit of becoming an NFL athlete. It's not as periodized. It's not just follow this prescription and you can become an NFL football player. It's messy. Yeah. There's twists, there's turns, ups, downs, everything in between. What is something you did as a child that you no longer do as an adult? For many, that answer is play. RX Smart Gear allows for your daily workouts to turn into play and exploration. In my training, the Frevo rope gives me access to a versatile rope that I can take with me wherever I go. On the road, at the beach, to the park, or playing at home, RX Smart Gear jump ropes fit my needs. We at Allsmith trust RX Smart Gear. Their gear is always reliable and gives me peace of mind that I will have top-notch equipment to support my health and fitness journey. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use the discount code ALLSMITH to shop their latest cutting-edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you. But the reality of the fact is you have to have gratitude. You have to stick with it. You have to trust in your ability, and you have to try your best to manage the inputs, customize them or tailor them to yourself, and then allow the outputs to be the best of your ability. And you described it really well today, man. I really appreciate you allowing me to connect with you. Are there any things in relation to your story in the form of advice that you would like to give to other up-and-coming athletes that are trying to come up? Next time we chat, we'll unpack the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, a little bit more. But if you were to give some advice to an up-and-coming athlete, not just football player, what would you share with them?
Have a true North Star. And I'll elaborate. We can dive deeper in it, but I'm going to say this. Have a true North Star, because the environment of athletics, sports, football specifically, and college, in basketball, is changing so much. The importance and the value of it is being quantified by a dollar or likes or things of that nature. So having a true North Star is going to be able to identify, what do we say yes to? What do we say no to? How do we keep going when the going gets rough? How do we take this thing beyond this when the final snap happens? The last thing I want to add to that, if you ask a lot of athletes why they play the sport, I would say 9 out of 10 going to say, I want to help such and such. I want to do. It's always a way to serve. It's always a means to an end. But when that mean ends, does that mission end? And so that's why having that North Star, saying that this is what I'm going to do, this is going to make sure that as you navigate that sport or as you navigate life, nothing will get in the way of it. Some journeys may stop, some checkpoints may stop, but the journey continues.
Yeah, that deeper why is so important. I'll wrap it up with this today, Curt. I read something earlier today that I thought would resonate with your hip injury. When you got injured, that's where most people stop. And that's why they don't win. It's a reminder for the gladiators in the arena who feel beat up, in pain, with no hope in sight, that becoming a professional athlete is really hard. Hard feels shitty. It doesn't always feel good. It's not always beautiful and romanticized on a highlight reel. But this is what hard feels like. And this is why most can't do it.
Absolutely.
But you can. And you did.
Yes, sir. I like that. Appreciate it.
Dude, it's so awesome to connect with you. Next time I'm carving out 3 hours for us to storytell and just create an incredible container for people to explore the identity factor associated with sports and all the transferable skills. Absolutely. Guys, if you haven't checked out Curt Maggitt, he's incredibly passionate. He's building the Edge Foundation. He's doing some cool things with the sports life business, the agency. and just unlocking lots of opportunities for mentorship, connection, fitness, growth, and evolution. You're awesome, man. I look forward to sharing this episode with our community. Any last minute thoughts?
Make sure, let's put part 2 on the calendar as soon as possible, because let's keep this conversation going. And
this was fun, man. This is the little
bro.
appetizer for people before we unpack the 5-course meal.
There we go. I like it. No, man.
Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with former NFL player Curt Maggitt, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time. Bye-bye.